You know that moment when someone finally realizes what they had after it's gone. Here's the truth: he didn't lose you when you walked away. He lost you when he stopped appreciating you. When he started treating your consistency as convenience, your love as a given. But here's the beautiful twist: you don't need to punish him. You don't need to prove anything. The moment you chose yourself, your peace, your standards, your worth, that was the turning point. This isn't about making him suffer. It's about making you remember who the hell you are. And trust me, once he sees that version of you, he will regret taking you for granted. Let's talk about how. When someone takes you for granted, it's not usually in some grand, obvious way. It's subtle. It's in the way they stop listening as closely. It's how they reply a little later than they used to, with a little less interest, a little less warmth. It's in the assumption that you'll always be there, because you have always been there. Your presence became routine, not appreciated, just expected. And that's the moment things begin to slip. Not because you changed, but because they stopped seeing what made you special in the first place. The hardest part about being taken for granted is that you often don't notice it until you're emotionally exhausted. You keep showing up, you keep giving, you keep hoping they'll wake up and start valuing you the way you deserve. But slowly, quietly, something inside you begins to change. You start to pull back. Not because you're trying to manipulate or punish, but because you're finally realizing how one-sided the connection has become. Then something powerful happens. You stop texting first. You stop over-explaining. You stop rearranging your schedule to fit their unpredictable energy. And when you do that, when your presence fades from their daily life, that's when they finally notice. Because your absence. That's loud. We often think we need to say something, post something, or make a grand exit to make someone regret losing us. But the truth is, it's the quiet shift that hits hardest. It's the space you leave behind, the silence where there used to be support, the lack of energy where there used to be constant effort. That silence forces them to confront something they didn't want to facing, that you were doing more than they realized, that your love wasn't a default, it was a choice, one you made daily. And now it's gone. There's a kind of regret that doesn't come from losing someone in a dramatic, explosive way. It comes slowly, over time, in the quiet. It creeps in when he sees that you're no longer available, emotionally or physically. When you stop being the backup plan, the emotional safety net. When your kindness, your attention, your presence is no longer something he can reach for when it's convenient. And he starts remembering things. Not just the big moments, but the little ones. How you laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. How you supported him when he didn't ask for it. How you noticed the things he didn't say. And that's when it hits him. He thought you'd always be there, but you're not. Not because you hate him, not because you're bitter, but because you finally recognize that your energy is sacred, and it shouldn't be spent on someone who sees it as ordinary. Here's what you need to understand: your absence speaks volumes. When you finally choose peace over chaos, self-worth over second-guessing, you become unignorable. Not through words, but through your silence. And that's what lingers. That's what haunts people who didn't appreciate what they had. They start wondering if someone else is receiving that energy now. Someone who sees you clearly. Someone who doesn't need to lose you to know your value. So no, you don't need to make him regret it. You don't need to teach him a lesson. You just need to step back and let the silence speak the truth that your words never could. Because when someone realizes what they had only after it's gone, that regret doesn't whisper. It screams. Every relationship we're in is, on some level, a reflection of what we're willing to tolerate. That might sound harsh, but it's true. People learn how to treat us based not on what we say we want, but on what we accept over time. You can tell someone you want respect, honesty, effort, but if you keep allowing half-hearted behavior, delayed responses, flackiness, or emotional neglect, that becomes the new standard. Without realizing it, you end up training someone to believe that the bare minimum is enough. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Most of us tolerate things because we care, we see potential. We want to believe that if we just hang in a little longer, love a little harder, they'll finally get it. We think that if we stay, and stay some more, they'll realize how lucky they are. But staying through disrespect or neglect doesn't teach someone to value you. It teaches them that you'll stick around no matter what. The standard we set in relationships isn't defined in the good times. It's not about how romantic they are on your birthday or how sweet they are when things are easy. It's defined in how we react when our needs aren't being met. It's in whether we speak up when we feel ignored, whether we step away when we're not receiving the effort we're giving. Every time we silence ourselves to keep the peace, we lower the bar. And every time we do that, we communicate, often without realizing it. You don't have to do better. This is okay. But here's the thing, it's not okay. You deserve someone who doesn't just show up when it's convenient or offer love in doses that barely keep you hanging on. You deserve consistency, care, presence. And when you start holding to that truth, not just in your words but in your actions, everything shifts. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make in a relationship is not yelling, not pleading, not begging someone to see your worth. It's quietly raising the standard. It's removing yourself from spaces where your value isn't recognized. It's saying, this doesn't work for me anymore, without drama, without ultimatums, just calm certainty. That's when people feel it. That's when they realize you're no longer playing by the old rules. That they either rise to meet you or they get left behind. There's a moment when someone finally sees that you're not bluffing, that your peace matters more to you than staying in something that drains you. And when that moment comes, it stings. Not because you said something dramatic, but because you didn't have to. You simply stopped showing up for crumbs. You decided to stop making excuses for them, and you made a new rule for yourself. If I have to beg for it, it's not love. This is where regret often creeps in for the person who took you for granted. When they realize that the way they treated you wasn't a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of what they thought they could get away with. And now, without your validation, without your presence, they have to sit with the version of themselves that wasn't good enough. Not because you weren't forgiving, but because you finally forgave yourself for tolerating less than you deserved. Remember, you don't raise your value by convincing someone else of it. You raise your value by believing it yourself and walking away from anything that doesn't align with it. That's not ego, that's self-respect. And once you start leading with that, the entire energy of your relationships changes. Some people will fall away, others will rise to the occasion. But either way, you win. Because you're no longer settling, you're choosing. And that choice sets a tone that demands something real. When most people think of a glow up, they picture the external, a new outfit, a new haircut, a new body, maybe. The kind of transformation you can flaunt in photos and make people stop scrolling. But the most powerful glow up, the one that actually shifts your life, isn't the one you see in the mirror. It's the one you feel in your spirit. It's emotional. It's internal. It happens quietly in the moments you stop needing validation from the person who couldn't see your worth in the first place. The emotional glow up begins when you realize you've spent too long tying your confidence to someone else's inconsistency. You were constantly adjusting, trying to be more chill, more understanding, more forgiving, even when your needs weren't being met. You kept hoping they'd change. That one day, they'd finally show up fully, match your energy, and love you with the same depth you gave them. But that day didn't come. And eventually, something in you breaks. But not in a dramatic, meltdown kind of way. It's a quiet shift, a calm clarity. You stop trying. You stop hoping they'll get it. You start seeing what was always there. They never deserved the version of you that bent over backwards to make it work. That's where the glow up begins. Not in revenge, not in trying to win the breakup, but in reclaiming your emotional energy. You stop arguing. You stop needing explanations. You stop wondering if you were too much or not enough. You stop needing closure from the person who couldn't give you consistency. And in that stillness, you realize something. Peace feels better than attention. Peace feels better than almost love. Peace feels better than drama disguised as passion. You begin to find yourself again, not the version of you who was shrinking to fit into their life, but the real you, the one who laughs loudly, loves deeply, and doesn't apologize for needing clarity, effort, and presence. And what's so interesting is that, while you're healing, they start noticing. They can feel it. People always do when your energy changes. When you stop reaching out. When you stop making yourself available emotionally. When your tone shifts from anxious to calm. That shift is loud. And it makes people uneasy. Especially the ones who fed off your need for them. They may try to come back. They may start noticing things they ignored. Suddenly they remember how supportive, loyal, and kind you were. Suddenly they feel your absence like a weight. But here's the difference now. You don't need that anymore. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You're not waiting for someone to realize your worth. You've already done that for yourself. That's the real glow up. Not becoming colder, not building walls, but becoming wiser. You still have the same heart, the same capacity to love. But now your love has a gate. It's no longer available to people who don't cherish it. You no longer offer it to anyone who hasn't done the work to deserve it. That shift is powerful because it radiates. People feel it even if they can't explain it. They'll say, "You've changed." And you have, not because you lost something, but because you found something, yourself. This emotional evolution is what makes someone regret losing you, because the old version of you, the one they took for granted, is gone. And in her place is someone stronger, calmer, more grounded. That kind of transformation can't be faked. It's not curated for social media. It's lived, and it's felt. Most importantly, it's yours. He thought you'd always be there. He thought your loyalty was permanent, that your love was on autopilot. That no matter how little effort he gave, no matter how inconsistent he became, you'd stay, because you always had. You forgave the distance. You made excuses for the mood swings, the missed calls, the forgetfulness. You reminded yourself of his good side, his potential, the way things used to be. And every time you stayed, it reinforced the illusion in his mind that your love was unconditional in the wrong way. That it didn't need to be nurtured, protected, or earned. But love doesn't work like that. You weren't asking for perfection. You weren't asking for constant fireworks. You just wanted to be seen, to be chosen with intention, to be appreciated not just when things were convenient, but every day in small, meaningful ways. What he didn't realize was that love is a gift. And like any gift, it can be withdrawn, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because eventually, you stop pouring into a cup that never fills yours back. There's this illusion that people who love deeply are somehow easy to keep. That just because you're kind and forgiving, you'll never leave. But the truth is, the people who love the hardest often leave the fastest once they're done. Because when they're done, they're done. And once you hit that emotional wall, when the pattern becomes too clear to ignore, your energy shifts. You become quiet, detached. Not because you stopped caring, but because you've finally accepted that the person in front of you isn't going to change. And then something happens. He starts to notice. Not because you made a big announcement, not because you posted some cryptic caption, but because your vibe is different. You stop asking. You stop chasing. You stop showing up with that same open heart. And that's when he feels the loss. Because now, he realizes something he didn't before. You were the prize. Not a backup. Not a default. You were a once-in-a-lifetime kind of person. And he treated you like a placeholder. He didn't lose you when you walked away. He lost you the moment he stopped putting in effort. The moment he began to believe that your presence was guaranteed. That love meant he could relax, stop growing, stop caring. That's when he lost you, even if it took time for you to fully leave. The truth is, Regret doesn't come from a sudden breakup. It comes from looking back and realizing you had someone rare and you didn't show up for them. It hits when the memories come rushing in, not just the big moments, but the small ones. The way you checked in when no one else did. The way you listened, even when you weren't being heard. The way you stayed loyal when others would have walked away. That kind of presence. It's not easy to replace. And once it's gone, it leaves a hole. But here's the thing, you don't have to do anything to make him feel that regret. You don't have to chase it. The weight of losing someone who gave real, patient, present love is something he'll carry all on his own. Because deep down, he'll know he was loved in a way most people never experience. And he let it slip away because he thought it would always be there. So no, you weren't too much. You were more than enough. You were the prize. He just forgot to claim it. And now, all he's left with is the echo of what he lost and the truth that someone else, somewhere, is going to recognize your worth on day one. Not after it's too late. When someone hurts you, disappoints you, or takes you for granted, the instinct is often to react, to explain, to lash out, to make them see what they've done. You want to defend yourself, to be understood, to remind them of your worth. It's human. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you try to prove something to someone who wasn't listening in the first place, the more you give away your power. You turn your pain into a performance, hoping for a response. But most of the time, the person you're trying to reach is either not ready to hear it or not capable of receiving it in the way you need. That's why no reaction is the strongest reaction. It's not about playing games. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about choosing your peace over pointless conversations. Because when someone really sees you slipping away, when they sense your detachment, your disinterest, your lack of reaction, they feel it far more deeply than they ever would from a long, emotional text or a dramatic phone call. Silence isn't empty. It's full of all the things you didn't say. And those unsaid words can echo louder than anything you could have screamed. When you stop reacting, it doesn't mean you've shut down. It means you've chosen yourself. You've realized that trying to get validation from the same person who made you question your worth is not only exhausting, it's useless. You can't force someone to value you. You can't make them regret hurting you by pointing out every flaw in their behavior. Regret doesn't come from being told they messed up. It comes when they feel the loss, and that feeling often comes in your absence. Think about it. The more you try to get someone to see what they did wrong, the more they tune out. They feel accused. They get defensive. They justify. But when you go quiet, not in anger, but in clarity, that's when it hits differently. That's when they start playing back your conversations in their head. That's when they start to wonder why you're not reaching out, why you're not trying anymore, why your energy is no longer available to them. That's when they begin to feel the consequences. Not because you demanded it, but because your silence showed them everything your words couldn't. There's power in being unbothered, in moving on with grace, in not needing to win the argument or get the last word. It shows emotional maturity. It shows strength. But most importantly, it shows that your self-worth is no longer tied to their response. You're not reacting because you don't need to, because you've accepted the situation for what it is, because you'd rather walk away with your dignity than stay and beg for basic respect. And make no mistake, they notice. People always notice when you stop showing up with the same energy, when your messages stop coming, when your name stops popping up, when your tone shifts from emotional to neutral. That shift, that pullback, it's a mirror. It forces them to sit with themselves. And for many, that silence becomes the loudest wake-up call they've ever had. So if you want someone to truly regret losing you, don't waste your breath explaining what they should have done. Just stop giving them the access they never earned. Stop feeding a connection that left you starving. Let your silence speak for you. Let your peace be the proof that you've outgrown the chaos. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing. There's a moment after heartbreak when you think, I hope he regrets it. I hope he sees what he lost. It's a natural thought. When someone takes you for granted and you finally walk away, it's tempting to want some kind of justice. Some sign that they're suffering in the absence of your love. But over time, if you're healing properly, you begin to realize something much deeper. His regret isn't your reward. Your peace is. At first, that might sound like a consolation prize, but it's not. It's the real win. Because regret, no matter how satisfying it might seem in theory, doesn't heal you. It doesn't fix the nights you spent wondering if you were enough. It doesn't erase the confusion or the disappointment or the slow erosion of your confidence. His regret might give you a moment of validation, sure, but it won't give you peace. And peace is what actually changes your life. When someone doesn't see your value while they have you, their eventual realization isn't your responsibility to wait around for. You could spend weeks, months, even years hoping they'll wake up and realize what they threw away. But in doing that, you keep yourself emotionally tied to a version of you that no longer exists. The version who accepted less, who questioned her worth, who stayed too long. That's not your story anymore. You've evolved. And the further you move into your own healing, the less interested you become in being anyone's lesson. You start to realize that the best thing that came out of this experience wasn't that they lost you. It's that you found yourself again, that you stopped settling for emotional scraps, that you stopped chasing someone who was never really ready for what you were offering. And once you understand that, you don't need closure. You don't need them to say, I was wrong. You don't need them to suddenly show up with clarity and apologies, because their regret has nothing to do with your growth. You didn't become stronger because they left. You became stronger because you chose to heal. This shift is where your real power lies, not in making someone else feel bad, but in rising above the need for them to feel anything at all. Your peace isn't just the absence of chaos. It's the presence of self-respect, boundaries, clarity, and wholeness. It's waking up in the morning and not feeling like you have to prove anything. It's no longer carrying the weight of a relationship that only you were fighting for. It's breathing easier, thinking clearer, feeling free. The ironic part is, this version of you, the one who no longer needs their validation, is often the one they miss the most. But by the time they realize it, you're no longer available, not out of bitterness, but because you're too grounded in your own life to entertain half-effort, temporary apologies, or empty gestures. You've outgrown the chapter where you wait for someone to get it. You're writing something better now. And if they couldn't see your worth when it was standing right in front of them, they don't get access to it now that it's elevated. So if you're still hoping he regrets it, take a breath. It's okay to want that for a moment, but then let it go. Because the real flex, the real healing, the real freedom is found in not needing that regret at all. You don't win when he realizes your worth. You win when you realize it, and never again settle for someone who doesn't. So here's what it all comes down to. He took you for granted. And yes, maybe one day he'll regret it, but that's not your story anymore. Because this isn't about him waking up. It's about you waking up to your worth, your power, your peace. You don't need to scream, chase, or prove a thing. Your silence, your standards, your growth, they speak louder than anything you could say. And the best part, you didn't need revenge. You just needed clarity. The real transformation isn't when he wants you back. It's when you no longer want to go back. That's the moment you win. That's the moment you're free. And that's the version of you he'll never get to have again.